Hi guys, welcome to the first part of this YouTube tutorial series. In this video, we will set up a simple scene in which users can join and explain the basics of connecting to a server with Photon Unity Networking. So to set up this project, we'll give the project a name. I'm going to call this top-down PUN2. We'll be using Unity 2018.3 or newer. This is because we will be using the latest features such as nested prefabs and native support of TextMesh Pro. We'll set the template to 2D and we'll click Create Project. So now that we have the project open, we're going to set the C# runtime to be the latest version so that we can use the latest C# features such as string interpolation, which we'll explain how to use once we get up to that. So we'll go Edit, Project Settings, and under Player, we'll go to Other Settings, and we'll set the scripting runtime version to .NET 4.x equivalent and .NET 4.x. And we can close that. We can download the latest version of PUN by going Window, Asset Store, and then we can search PUN2. And then we can click PUN2-free. And we can click Import. We can just go All. Now that Photon is finished installing, it will ask us for our app ID. So we can create an account on Photon's website at photonengine.com. And then once we've created an account, there'll be a real-time little window and we can grab our app ID and we can copy that into our Unity and click Setup Project. Now we are all ready to go with Photon, and now let's explain the basics of how master servers work. In order for us to create a Photon room, we must first connect to the Photon master server. The master server allows us to find other games in the same region, as well as create our own game. We won't be using lobbies in this tutorial, but these can be used to modify settings before we start a game. A room is where our game takes place. Let's look at how we create a room. So first of all, our game starts in the offline state. In order to connect to the Photon master server, we call connect using settings. This will connect us to the master server that is geographically located closest to us. We then call join random room. If there are no rooms available, we'll get the Photon callback on join random room failed. From that callback, we'll call create room, and then we'll receive the callback on joined room. Now we can start playing our game. If, however, after we connected to master and we called joined random room and there was a room available, we'll go straight to the on joined room step. Okay, now that we're back in Unity, let's set out our Unity window layout. So we'll go Window, Layout 2x3. Then we'll go Window, General, Console to get a console window. And we'll drag that to the bottom. We'll swap our game and scene windows. And we'll drag the project window to the bottom. We're also going to set the aspect ratio to 16:9, as that's the only aspect ratio we're going to support for this game. And now we'll save our scene by going File, Save As, and we'll call this Menu. Now we'll add a canvas to our scene. So we'll right click UI Canvas, and we'll set this to scale with screen size. And we'll set the width to a 16:9 width, which in this case we'll do 1280 by 720. And then under the canvas, we'll right click UI TextMesh Pro Text. And this is going to ask us if we want to import the TextMesh Pro Essentials. So we'll click yes. And then once those are done, we'll right click UI TextMesh Pro Input Field. So I'll set this text size to be 20. And we'll center align this vertically And now we'll set the height of both these to be 30. And now we can move the input field over to the right by a bit. And we can set the name the text list to say name : So we'll just shrink this down just so that it fits just this. So this shows a position X of minus 30. So then we'll try set this to a position X of about the same on the right hand side. And we'll set the color of this text to be black. And now we'll set the camera's color to a nice, I'm going to set it to a nice sort of shade of purple. Something that's not too harsh. Something about that looks good. And we'll set the name of this to be name label. And we'll set the other object to be called name input field. We'll right click and add a button. So we'll right click UI button. We'll just move this down a bit. We'll set its height to minus 40. You can see that our name and input fields are not too well aligned at the top, so we'll set this one to 30. Maybe the name input field will set to positive. So yeah, we'll just play with that until we get nice. You might actually just set their positions both to be 0. No, that's not going to work for us. So yeah, something like that looks about right. And we'll set the text of this button to be called play. And we'll just shrink the width of this button a little bit. We'll halve it, maybe set it to 80. We'll rename this object to play button. So now let's get into coding. So we'll create a new folder, call this scripts. We'll create our connector script. And this will have all the logic that we just talked about. So we'll open up this newly created script. And we'll create a variable for the maximum amount of players that we can have in our room. We'll set that equal to 4. We'll make this editable in the inspector by putting serialize field. We'll give it a tooltip to tell users what this does. So this is the maximum number of players per room. We'll have a reference to the main menu UI. So we have a game object main menu UI. We're also going to have a game object for a loading screen that we haven't created just yet. So we'll go serialize field, game object, loading UI. We have a string that represents the game version. This is so that if different players have different versions, we won't have people joining versions that have breaking changes. So I'll add a comment describing that. So this is the client's version number. Users are separated by game version. We have a variable representing whether or not we're currently connecting to a room. And then on awake, we'll make sure that we automatically synchronize scenes. So this means that whenever the master client changes scenes, all the clients will also change scene. So to do this, we go Photon Network. You'll see that it doesn't suggest that Photon Network, so we need to include using photon.pun, and later on we're going to need photon.realtime as well, so we might as well import that right now. So now we can say Photon Network dot automatically sync scene equals true, and now all the scenes will automatically sync. Now we'll create our method for connecting. So we'll create public void connect. So we'll set is connecting to true. We'll update the UI. So in this case, we're going to hide the main menu UI and show the loading UI. And if we're currently connected to the master server, then we'll join a random room. Otherwise, we'll connect to the master server. So we'll set our game version to the game version we defined at the top of the file, and then we'll call connect using settings. So once we call connect using settings, that's going to call on connected to master. So we'll change this to have mono behavior and the PUN callbacks. So now we can do public override void on connected to master. So we can say if we are connecting, then we'll join a random photon network dot join random room, else we won't do anything. So the reason why we don't want to do anything if we're not connecting is there might be a reason that we're connecting to the master server, but we're not actually wanting to join a room. So join random room, we'll call on join room if there is a room. So on joined room. So if we're going to say if the current amount of players in this room is 1, then we will load our game scene. And this is the same as loading a scene in Unity, but this way it'll synchronize the changing of the scene to all the other clients. And if there is no rooms available, then we will create a room. So we won't, in this case, we won't set a room name, but you can set a room name here. But we will set the room, we'll also set the room options to set the max players equal to the max players per room. Cool. So that's the connector script created. So let's add what's missing to our scene. So under our canvas, we'll add a child called main menu UI, and we'll drag all these under the main menu UI. We'll also add another child called loading UI. So we'll create empty loading UI. And under this, we'll create a UI text mesh pro text. We'll set this to loading connecting label. And we'll set the text to connecting. We'll set this to so that it just overflows. We'll set the text to black. We'll set this to center on both. We just disable the main menu UI. I think that looks good. So we'll just hide this now. And then on our canvas, we'll add our connector script. We'll set our main menu UI and loading UI, as well as making our play button call connect. So we'll drag the canvas onto the on click the drop down, click connector, and then click connect. We can now duplicate our menu scene and create our game scene. And we can just delete everything under the canvas for this scene. And then we can set the color of this room to be a nice sort of dark green. I think something like this looks nice. So we'll set it to this. And now we're going to create a nice little, debug script so that we can watch Photon connect to the various different stages that it does to join a server. So right click and create a new text mesh pro text. And we'll call this status label. And we'll align this to the top left hand corner. So we'll hold Control and Alt and click this top left corner. And we'll write status : space. We'll set the text to black. We'll set the font size to 20. And we'll set it to disabled for wrapping so that the text keeps going. And we can also set the height to 30, but that's not essential. We'll just make sure that stays at the top. And now we'll write a status updater script. So we'll click add component and type status updater. Click new script and we'll click create and add. So in our status updater, we'll just get rid of all the insides. And we'll say that the status update requires text mesh pro UGUI. And we can see that that's not appearing, so we need to import text mesh pro. We're also going to need Photon, so we'll say using photon.pun. Now we can now this script now requires that there's a text mesh pro UGUI on the same game object. So we can say text mesh pro UGUI status text, and in the start method we'll assign that. So I'll say private void start status text equals get component text mesh pro UGUI. And in the update method, we'll update this text and we'll say status text dot text equals, and we're going to learn the string interpolation operator So this might not be an operator you've seen before. So we put a $sign beforehand, before a string. We can say status, and this will print just like a normal string. And then if we do 2 curly braces, whatever is in these curly braces will be a variable that is printed. So if we just printed 0 here, it would print status, and then it would print the number 0. If we did 0 plus 1, or 2 plus 1, then inside it would print status, colon, space, and then the number 3. But we're wanting to print a string here, so we'll say photon network dot network client state dot toString. Now we can just drag that into our scripts folder. Now we're going to create another similar script in our game scene. So on our menu scene, we'll just copy the status label. We'll paste it into our game scene. And we'll change this to players connected label. We'll remove the status updater, and we'll set the text to players 0 out of n players connected, showing that in our case it'll be 1 when the first person joins. It'll say 1 out of 4 players connected, and we'll add component players connected UI. So this will be very similar. So we'll say using TM Pro and using photon.pun. And we'll also require a TextMesh Pro UGUI. And so we'll have TextMesh Pro UGUI connected text. And in start we'll set this. So we'll say connected text equals get component text mesh pro UGUI, and an update we'll say status connected text equals, we'll use the string interpolation operator again here. We'll set it to something divided by something players connected, and we'll set the right hand side of this to be photon network dot current room dot max players, and we'll set the left hand side to be photon network dot current room dot player count. So you can see that the photon network dot current room has lots of useful information about the room we're connected in. So we can now drag this into our scripts folder once the code is finished compiling. Oop. So if we go to we need to add this scene to our build index. So we'll go build and run. We'll create a new folder called builds. So we can go build settings. We can add the menu scene first and then the game scene, and click build and run and put it in the builds folder we just created. So we can set this to 1280 by 720. And it will say pair created as the status there, and we'll also run a version of it inside the Unity editor. So you can see that's joined, and then we'll click on the menu, we'll click play. And type in the name here. And we can see that it says 2 out of 4 connected. And if we close this one, we can see that it updates and says 1 out of 4 connected. All of the code in this video is in the GitHub in the description below. Thanks for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it, please leave a like and consider subscribing to this channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.